Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to Commute Talk. It's gray and rainy here. Wouldn't you know it? But we all know the drill. So today, Extus writes in asking about the balance between bug fixing and features, and also about testing. And what do I think about testing, especially in the context of Serenity? So thank you, Extus, for asking about these very important subjects. When it comes to bug fixing versus feature work, I think that those are usually the two things that are mentioned in that context. But I think that there are a couple of more things like that you also switch between. And for me, those are bug fixing, feature work, performance work, and infrastructure work. And then in theory, there's also documentation, but I can't say that I really switch into that. It's more like something I try to do incrementally whenever I remember. But really, what these things are like different energies or different hats that you wear in a project. And in a bigger project, like you go to work for a big tech co, and you're on a team with 100 people doing some product, it's very likely that you never really switch between these hats. But in your personal project, you're probably wearing all of the hats. And assuming you have a personal project, which in my opinion you should, because it's just so good for your development. But at the same time, I don't want to tell anyone how to live their life. So if you are happy not having a personal project, then that's great for you. I'm very happy with my personal project. And a personal project doesn't have to be something that you take to the extreme like I've done with mine, but just something where you have an infinite amount of control over it, so that you can try things and experiment and mess around, and you're not bound to anyone else's sensibilities. It's an important thing to have. Anyway, so in a personal project, you will be wearing all of the hats, right? And you'll be doing all the bug fixing, the feature work, the performance work, and the infrastructure, and whatever other hats you can imagine. And I feel like I want to sneeze, but hopefully I don't have to. Maybe it will pass. So when you're just starting out as a programmer, this can be a bit confusing and overwhelming sometimes, because you don't know how to switch between these different hats, or even when to do it. But it's something that you grow into over time, I think. And especially if you work on teams and you do some product releases and stuff, then you start to develop an intuition for where's the quality bar for when it's time to transition from one thing to the other. Because the transition from feature work to bug fixing is a very natural one, right? It happens when you have enough features that you would like to push out a release, but the quality is, let's say, buggy, right? Things are buggy, crashy, glitchy, whatever. So it's just natural at that point to switch from, okay, I'm not going to do any more features at the moment, I'm just going to fix up the stability and everything. And then different places do this differently, but something that they did at Apple for a while at least was this thing that they call Performance Month, which I think was supposed to be around April, and it was always a scheduling. It was scheduling was tricky around that, because it was also gearing up towards WWDC, and people were not entirely finished with their features, and then everyone's supposed to have iOS Performance Month and blah blah blah, and I don't know, maybe that was not perfect, uh, but it sort of coincided with the start of shifting from feature work to bug fixing. And I guess they were trying to get the performance work out of the way at the start of the bug fixing phase or something like that. I don't know. I never really talked to anyone who administrated that type of stuff there. I was just on the receiving end of these shifts. But it worked okay, I guess. Some interesting performance work definitely got done in those months. But personally, I tend to think that performance work is its own thing and should not be glued into bug fixing. But it's not necessarily something that has to happen in a separate phase. It's something you can sort of weave in here and there. But I don't know because I haven't like taken a big chunk out of my own time to stop doing feature work and work on only performance yet. But I'd imagine that it's something that will happen eventually in Serenity in the future. It's just that we have sort of worse problems than performance problems right now. And then, of course, infrastructure work is another thing that you also you have to develop a feel for when that's needed. And I can tell you that the first time I saw that it was really needed in the Serenity project was when I had a lot of visitors the first time in April of last year, because somebody posted a link to the GitHub on Hacker News, and then like thousands of people showed up, and a lot of them were like, well, how do I build this? And that was not easy. It just had a very hand-wavy explanation of like, well, you just need a cross compiler and la la la, and essentially nobody got it up and running. And I remember at the time thinking like, oh, what a wasted opportunity. Everyone could have seen my cool thing. But there are always more opportunities. Regardless, that made me realize that some infrastructure work is definitely needed. And then there was a pretty nice shift towards making it easy to set up a new repository, to get a toolchain going, to get a local build and everything. And we try to maintain good scripts and good infrastructure ever since that initial shock. And a whole bunch of people have helped out on that, and I'm really grateful for that, especially to Nicholas, who did the first iteration of the toolchain build stuff. Very, very good stuff. Made it possible for other people to build the system. So that's awesome. Anyways, what was I even talking about? So yeah, so you have all these different hats, right? Like the bug fixing, the feature work, the performance, infrastructure, and any hats that you yourself want to add. Those are my hats. And you got to rotate between them. And when you're first starting out, then you don't know when and you don't know how to rotate. So what you got to do is you just got to rotate regularly and just practice, honestly. Especially if there's no one telling you to do it. I think something that's very healthy for like personal projects, especially if you're doing like a little program, little app or something, is to put yourself into this release cycle mindset. Because at least if you aim to work in programming as a career together with others, because release cycles exist basically everywhere. So something that seems to work pretty well for people is to just emulate that in their own personal projects. And I mean, once they get past the point of this is something like remotely releasable, because obviously when I say that, my mind immediately goes to Serenity, which is really far from being releasable. So it's not really in that state yet where we start to pretend that we have a release cycle. But It would be fun to get there. I mean, we will get there. It's just a matter of time. And but with your personal project, you can start to emulate the release cycle if you feel ready, and you can start packaging releases regularly, and then deciding for yourself, like, what is the thing I'm focusing on right now? Because I think as programmers, we have this energy in us, right? And that energy tends to be directed to one of these hats at any given moment. And I know that at the moment, my energy has been towards like bug fixing and kernel work, and I've done so much of that, and a bit less. I haven't made that many videos about it because it's been kind of dry stuff, but that's where my energy has been for the last couple of weeks, I guess. And there comes a point where you need to start breathing in some new features into the thing, but I'm on a different kind of cycle, I guess, with this stuff, because I have the monthly release, or not releases, but monthly update videos, and everything sort of naturally falls around those for me, because I like to tie things up, and I do a little bit of bug fixing for the release or the monthly update video, so that I can get through recording a whole video without crashing. And I don't know, I guess that has become the release cycle in this phase of development. What am I trying to say with all this? These things are hats. You are always switching between them. Figure out where the natural transitions occur between the states. They're probably different for everyone, but try to figure out where it's easiest for you to switch between them. Like, what amount of bugs makes you want to fix bugs? What amount of stability makes you bored of bug fixing and want to get back to feature work? What amount of slowness makes you want to do performance work? And what amount of typing stupid crap into the terminal over and over makes you want to do infrastructure work and write yourself some nice scripts? Yeah. And then the second part of the question was about testing. So I think testing is fantastic, and it's really lovely, and good testing, or good unit testing in particular, allows you to do refactoring with much greater confidence than you can without it, because you can change things around, and if you make some silly mistake somewhere, then the tests will often catch it if they are comprehensive enough, and I think that's absolutely awesome. And it's something I really enjoyed and was almost spoiled with in the WebKit project, and also in the Qt project, which also has very good testing. Now, Serenity it's nowhere near those levels of testing, but I've only just started this month writing out some very basic tests. And it's not very ergonomic. It's like there's like two separate little programs that you can run, and they have all the tests in them, and if something fails, you'll get an assertion or an error message or something, and if everything works, it'll just say nothing. But that's something that we're going to be beefing up over time. It's just, I have to start somewhere, right? So I just wanted to start like getting into the habit of thinking about writing tests, and like actually exercising the bug fixes that I'm doing and stuff like that. And that's been going okay. But I'd really like to get to a place where each test is its own file, its own little program, and maybe part of the test would be like going into Serenity and building the tests there and running them inside there, and that would give you all kinds of testing if you also have to build the tests inside the system. But yeah, we're not there yet, but we're taking the first steps, so that's pretty cool. I'm a big fan of testing, and I also recognize that there is such a thing as a useless, pointless test, and I try to avoid spending time on those, but at the same time, it doesn't really cost you that much. So some useless, pointless tests are okay to have. And everything needs more testing. We should write more tests. And I feel like if I just get the testing infrastructure to a good place and make it easy for other people to add tests, then very likely it won't just be me making the tests anymore. It's just that right now it's really like confusing and nebulous. Like, what is even the test? What is this test IO program? What is it supposed to do? If these things were more clearly defined, I think that people would happily contribute. I know I would. So maybe this is my infrastructure sense tingling a little bit and saying like, maybe it's time to spend some time on this. See how that works? But it's good that you asked about this because you're forcing me to think about it. And this is something that I really love about doing these commute talks, is that they are almost like interrupt requests to my brain, because I'm doing one thing and then you bring up a question like this and it forces me to engage with it and think about it, and I end up realizing something that I hadn't thought of otherwise. So maybe it is time to do a little bit of testing infrastructure. I'm just gonna let this woman on her beautiful bicycle cross the street. Ma'am, you really need to wear a helmet here. It always scares me a bit when I see people bicycling without a helmet. It's such an easy thing to do differently that will make such a difference if something happens. It's like a real-life security mitigation. Anyways, little side note there about helmets. Wear helmets. So I'm about ready to arrive at work here, so I guess I'll just say thank you for hanging out with me on the commute and for listening to my thoughts about the different roles that you have in a software project and the different energies, and also testing, which is awesome and we should do more of. Thank you, Extus, for the question. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me on the commute. And let's go and have a Tuesday and try to make it the most decent Tuesday that we can. See you next time. Bye.